Hey everyone, welcome back to my favorite Norns scripts. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I want to do a follow-up to the cheat codes episode because I feel like I spent a lot of time in that video going over the technical aspects and not enough time going over the practical uses. I'm going to be explaining 4 ways I use cheat codes, which will expand on the information I laid out in part 1. When I'm making patterns, I'll usually use the ARP. ARP isn't really a traditional step sequencer, but I get around this by setting one pad in the bank to a blank buffer. This allows that pad to act as a rest. In all 3 banks, I have pad 16 set to buffer 2, which I leave blank. You can navigate to the ARP submenu to make inputting the steps easier. I'll turn on the ARP and lock it from the grid and then create a pattern. The ARP submenu allows you to see exactly what step you're on, which makes creating the pattern a bit easier. You can repeat this process with the other 2 banks and set their rates to different speeds to get some variety. The last thing I like to do is enable random panning for all 3 banks to really mix things up. If you really want to make things interesting, you can navigate to the pattern sequencer page and save the patterns you just made to one of the slots. Now go back to the main page and erase the pattern and create a new one. Save that to the preset page and then sequence some pattern changes. I find that when doing this, it's best to deactivate the sequencer so that your previous pattern won't be re-triggered. Another thing I like to do is use the delays as a looped layer. This is pretty straightforward, but you can get some cool results. First, set the feedback level to 100%, and then while holding Alt, use the quick jump key to send bank A to the delay. Now you can turn the volume up on the delay. Next, I like to set the playback speed of the buffers to half. I enter the grid presses slightly off from each other to get a cool stereo effect. Now that this is looping, you can change the speed to whatever you like. Cheat codes can be used in a very similar way to the Microcosm pedal by Hologram Electronics. To set this up, you'll first need to turn off the monitor. This will make it so you don't hear the input, only what cheat codes is outputting. Next, set up some patterns for banks A, B, and C. What I like to do is set the duration of the first pad to the full length of the buffer and then set the ARP speeds to very low. I usually do 1 bar, half a bar, and quarter note. Next, I like to change the playback rates. I usually set them to half speed, normal speed, and double speed. Now you can adjust the length of the live buffer. I generally like to have it set somewhere between 2 and 4 seconds. After that, set the feedback level. The lower the level, the more each pass will change. Now record ARM buffer A and start playing. If you like something, you can turn record off and it will be preserved. If you want to get really wild, you can set up the random modulators to affect the rate and have the rate change while you're playing. The final thing I want to go over is how you can sequence drums that are in time with your patterns. I did this in the demo performance for part 1. You can turn this on either from the main menu or the pad to note setup submenu in the parameters menu. I prefer to use the pad to note menu because it makes setting the octaves a bit easier. For this demo, I'm going to be using the pads to sequence drums, but you can sequence anything with them. I recorded some samples from Plum Butter and I've laid them out in a drum track. I'm going to be using Bank B as my MIDI source. Now each pad will correspond to a different drum sample. You can tweak the layout of your rack until you're happy with the beat. The possibilities are endless here. You can create chains within the rack to get more variation, as well as use expression control or other devices to modulate volume, pan, pitch, or whatever other parameters you'd like. Using this technique in conjunction with the previous one can lead to some really cool evolving results. If I record arm the buffer and start playing new information into it, you'll hear everything change. I hope the techniques I laid out are helpful to you. I'm going to be making more of an effort in future videos to give some practical examples in addition to technical explanations. I might even revisit some of the scripts I already covered. If you have any tips for cheat codes, I'd love to hear about them, and if there are any scripts you'd like to see me cover or revisit, let me know below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.